Christendom, a word that many have heard but have little idea what it means. They suppose that it's equivalent to Christianity, the entirety of all who call themselves Christians. Now, that's not really Christendom, at least not as it was originally conceived in the minds of European Christians in the Middle Ages. Maybe the best way to understand what Christendom is to take a closer look at the word, Christendom. It's a merging of the words Christian and kingdom. The idea of Christendom arose in Europe during what's called the Dark Ages. The fall of Rome in the West left the continent reeling. Many people longed for a return to the days when there was a central government to provide a measure of political and economic security. The result was the emergence of the Holy Roman Empire, a complex and diverse political entity that took shape in Europe and operated in one form or another for about 1,000 years. It was a loose collection of territories and principalities governed by an elected emperor. The origins of the Holy Roman Empire lie in the year 800, when Charlemagne was crowned by Pope Leo III as the first Holy Roman Emperor. Charlemagne's empire was vast, stretching from modern-day France to Germany and Italy. His coronation was hoped by many as a revival of the ancient Roman Empire, but this time in league with the Roman Church. The hope was to unite the continent under a political system that was an expression of Christian values and virtues. The emperor was regarded as God's representative on earth, responsible for protecting and promoting the Christian faith, which at that time was synonymous with the interests of the Roman Church, and that meant its hierarchy, popes, cardinals, bishops. In episode 72 of Communio Sanctorum, the episode titled Of Popes and Princes, we took a look at a rift that occurred between the Pope and the King of France in the 14th century. The Church was so wed to the politics of Europe that as the continent began to break into the regions that would eventually become the modern nation-states that we know of today, the popes, who'd once exercised dominion over rulers, began to be their pawns. That's what in fact was happening became clear in the tussle between Pope Boniface VIII and the French King Philip. Now, Philip managed to have a Frenchman elected pope in 1305. He was Pope Clement V. Clement never set foot in Rome. The papal center was moved to southern France, and it remained there under a succession of French popes for 72 years. Those popes were little more than puppets to the French kings. But the buddy system between church and state that was de rigueur for the Holy Roman Empire had long seen the corruption of the church's God-ordained and Christ-initiated mission. Long before the French king co-opted the church, church leaders had filled the roles of political operators. It was all part of European feudalism. Christendom, a merging of church and state. It didn't work then, and it won't work now, though a new generation of Christians are calling for it. It goes under the banner of Christian nationalism. It's an attempt to revive Christendom. Though the Holy Roman Empire of the Middle Ages was a colossal failure, those urging the cause of Christian nationalism think that they're going to get it right this time. The arrogance of this present moment strikes again. While the roots of Christian nationalism go back a ways, the movement, it got a real boost from COVID. Government lockdowns and restrictions on personal liberties enraged many people. It seemed a prime example of bureaucratic overreach and a far cry from the limited government that was envisioned by the founders. Some pastors and Christian leaders leveraged the moment to rally behind a call for resistance to what they said was the tyranny of power-hungry bureaucrats. They woke up churchgoers who before had been little interested in politics. The idea that the government could close their church was anathema. It sounded like something straight out of the Soviet Union. Overnight, people who before had sat quietly in church were now speaking out, and speaking out loudly. Motivated by pastors urging political engagement, they took in a heavy dose of teaching about the linkage between Christianity and American history. They began to regard America as unique among the nations, a land of special promise and mission. The average person in the pew didn't realize that they were being groomed to be the shock troops of Christian nationalism. What today is referred to by both adherents and opponents as Christian nationalism, listen, it's a reheated version of medieval Christendom. It didn't work then. It won't work now. It can't, because it naively ignores the truism that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The power of the gospel is to save the lost, not the state. The God-ordained mission of the church is not to redeem the institutions of society. It's to preach the gospel and make disciples. Now, as the church remains faithful to that, lives are changed that change society. But the moment the church shifts its focus onto societal change, it fails. Peter tried to help Jesus start his earthly reign by swinging a sword, the symbol of civil authority and power. Jesus rebuked him because that's not how the kingdom of God is manifest for now. Yes, the day is coming when Jesus will come with a sword, but it's not today. There's no place now for modern Christendom. That awaits Jesus' return.